What's up, guys? J-Man back again, giving you another video on The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 4, The Cell. So this episode has a strong emphasis on the sanctuary with Dwight and Daryl, a kind of conflict of interest here between the two characters, and we even see a few appearances of Negan, and we get to see, like, the type of tyranny, so to speak, that Negan runs at the sanctuary and the kind of authoritarianism that everybody is enslaved by in that community. So at the beginning of the episode, we get to see a interesting scene where Dwight is eating a sandwich and he is viewing the a walker horde uh, that is kept in an enclosure where people who break the principles in the community, the sanctuary, they have to be thrown in gladiator style, very Governor Woodbury-esque, where they're thrown into a inhabited, fenced-in area with walkers, and they have to take the bucket off and push the walkers away, that sort of thing. So it's just interesting to see that occur because we see one walker who is pitchforked through his stomach, and he's kneeling on one knee and he's getting back up. And it's interesting take because I don't know who the director is. It's probably Nicotero or Gimple, but the idea that they put such a strong emphasis of doing pan in on the walker, pan in back to Dwight, it's very symbolic of Dwight's idle attempts at escaping from Negan's subjugation. So I thought it was metaphorically symbolic of that because he's getting up and then going down on one knee again, kind of what Dwight is under Negan's thumb this entire time, kneeling before Negan anytime he passes by. And you see Dwight in his expression, the way he emotes, that he conveys resentment for that. And it's quite interesting to see Dwight express resentment, just kind of like shed light that not everybody living in the community, so easily complies with Negan. I mean, who would, to be honest? But throughout the progression of the episode, we suffer through the amount of torture that Daryl suffers through in the episode. I mean, blaring music, which impedes him from sleeping at night, and it's just awful torture to where he can't even sleep, get any rest. They blast music. And they feed him dog food sandwiches. Dwight comes in every day, feeds him dog food sandwiches, and it's quite terrible that the how people who are there are oppressed. So I think it's very reminiscent of what we saw in season 3 with the governor and when Glenn was a POW, when he was beat the shit out of by Merle, still managed to survive. But here it seems to be much, much worse because even the inhabitants of the sanctuary are slaves, and I think that's a callback to the episode titled "The Cell." But really, it's a strong emphasis on Dwight's character, and we get to see the exposition of his character later in the episode, at the very end. But we see that it's no fun living there. Now, the argument has been brought up that yeah, but if you think about it, Negan, people have it good there because he's ruling everything, and you're going to choose between the sanctuary and going out on your own. The chances of survival are dismal, and I guess you could say that, but at what cost? I mean, the thing is that Negan deprives people of their basic human rights. He deprives them of self identity. And that's something that's essential to the human character because you need your own identity to differentiate yourself from other people. And he forces his own inhabitants to call themselves Negan. Now think about that. People call Rick cocky. But think about how narcissistic Negan is when he makes his own inhabitants call themselves Negan. Just let that process through your brain, the amount of vanity that Negan exhibits in character. So, we get introduced to an array of Negan's comrades, proteges. We get to see a Simon, Dwight, then we get to see this new character called Fat Joey. And Fat Joey creates this situation, or more like Negan's at the helm of the situation, where he gives Daryl his dog food sandwich, and he leaves the door open. And you see throughout the episode, the doors are locked because you could hear the large bolts being clicked in, and he's trapped into that little room. But Daryl doesn't hear the bolts. And Daryl, falling for the trick, leaves the area, and he runs outside where he sees a bunch of motorcycles. And bikes is just a euphemism, but he goes. He's about to go on the motorcycle, and you see 10 guys come out and they surround Daryl. And then Negan gives this, long monologue again. He's like, "You can either be in that cell, you can be one of my slaves, or you can be one of my proteges. But you got to do one thing, one simple question." And he's like, "Who are you?" And then Daryl doesn't say anything. And then it's just a compilation of just Negan trying to intimidate Daryl, and Daryl's not breaking so easily. So Negan just leaves the scene, and then they just beat the shit out of Daryl. So yeah, it's really just a worst kind of prisoner of war that we've seen on this show, Daryl. It kind of sucks, but it's also eye-opening, I guess, or enlightening to see that Dwight is expressing bitterness and resentment towards Negan. You see it through micro expressions, even when he talks about it. And throughout the episode, we see one guy who is a deserter, one of the saviors, and he leaves the sanctuary, and Negan has to go. I'm sorry, Dwight has to go track him down, and he runs into some trouble with walkers, and his bike runs out of gas or whatever. And there's a bridge on top, and there's a walker that's thrown from the bridge. And now this is very reminiscent of a certain situation. If you comic book fans have read Walking Dead, you'll know that, pay close attention to detail, that when Rick sends Jesus to track down, to spy on Dwight and the Saviors, Jesus gets into a tussle with one of the walkers on a bridge that's about 20 to 30 feet above Dwight. And he throws the walker off, and it lands near Dwight. But then, Jesus hides. Like, he doesn't see him. And the walker is thrown off a bridge, and we don't see who it is. Jesus is not in the episode, the actor, nor the character. So it's thrown down, and then, Dwight gets into a bit of trouble. He kills the walkers, and then he finds the deserter. And the deserter would rather die than live under Negan's subjugation. And that really tells you something about Negan's ruling. His authoritarianism, so to speak. I like to consider it authoritarianism. So, he'd rather die, and Dwight's telling him, "No, if you make me kill you, I would put your entire family on that fence." And they have a fence outside the sanctuary that's basically, anybody who exhibits defiance or who is conspiring to lead a rebellion against Negan, he puts them on that fence. So then he complies, and he's walking back to the sanctuary, and then Dwight says, Dwight doesn't really say anything, but he gives this expression and then shoots him in the head because he would rather see him die than go work for Negan. And I think that really says something about Negan's rule. Not fun to live under Negan's subjugation, But yeah, throughout the episode, and then, oh God, something that's very, we're still hinging on that moment from episode 1 when, throughout the episode, there's a certain point where Daryl's fed up, and he throws his dog food sandwich at Dwight, and Dwight gives him a photograph of Glenn's bashed-in brains, and that really is a callback to the foreshadowing we saw last season when Glenn was looking at those photographs, and now he is a victim of the loose ceiling, so it's terrible. Glenn looks at the photo, and Dwight plays a song over the speakers in his cell, and it's very reminiscent of how Daryl is feeling in that moment. It's a sorrowful moment. And so after that, we're coming to the very end of the episode. And then what happens? Oh, yeah. He takes Daryl to meet Negan once more. And, that he has his own monologue again. It seems like every scene he's in, Negan has a prolonged monologue that's supposed to have some intended meaning. And he says, "You're either going to work for me or you're going to be in that damn cell. You just got to answer one simple question." He asked him the question once more. "Who are you?" And of course, the answer correctly would be Negan. But Dwight, I mean, I'm sorry, Daryl does not want to give up his own sense of self, and he just says, "My name's Daryl." And then they just take Daryl out and no, not kill him, but they move him back to the cell. And the final shot of the episode is Dwight looking at the fence of walkers that they've captured in an area for the POWs or defiant individuals to try to push away and torture them. He sees that the one character that he shot in the head, the deserter, he's back into that cage, and it's kind of indicative of, in one shape or another, whether you're dead or not, whether you're the undead or no, whether you're the dead or alive, you come back to be under Negan's subjugation regardless. And I was like, damn. And another expression of bitterness that Dwight expresses. So that's really how the episode ends, and it'll be interesting what we see next week with the 90-minute episode special with the first visit to the Alexandria for supplies. And it's interesting because I was watching the promo for the next episode, and I'm guessing we're probably going to see maybe because you see Michonne on the rooftop with a sniper, and I guess it's going to be very reminiscent to the second visit they have in the comics where Negan's about to leave and they take Negan's men out, and Rick's like, you just brought a baseball bat to a gunfight, and they have snipers and they shoot their guns. And so it's probably going to match the fidelity for that second economic trade. Not really a trade, it's more like give me your shit, extortionism. So yeah, it should be interesting to see if Rick is going to be defined in this moment, but it looks like he's still reduced to subservience. He's still beaten to submission, and who knows what we'll see. But yeah, very interesting episode. I enjoyed this episode. Yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time.